What a mess. Yesterday was a gong show at the bottom of a dumpster fire, wrapped up in a cluster. The finance minister resigns, the prime minister hides all day and then has to beg his MPs not to fire him. But the worst news, buried underneath it all, was a devastating gut punch to Canadian taxpayers. A $62 billion deficit smashing through the already insane $40 billion guardrail. Canada is a serious G7 NATO partner staring down the threat of 25% tariffs. We deserve a strong leader with a new mandate. Why not let Canadians decide by calling a carbon tax election?
Mr. Speaker, I want to start by thanking the opposition House Leader for his heartfelt congratulations on my new role. I want to tell him, Mr. Speaker, and all Canadians, that our government is very proud of the fall economic statement that we made public yesterday. Mr. Speaker, the fall economic statement speaks to growth in the Canadian economy. It speaks to supporting Canadians with serious affordability challenges. It speaks to a declining debt to GDP ratio, the best in the G7. And Mr. Speaker, we haven't finished supporting Canadians, something the Conservatives aren't interested in doing.
Well, I'd like to congratulate the new finance minister for being the fourth finance minister in a 24-hour period. But it's the same old talking points. What they did yesterday was smash through that $40 billion guardrail. What does that mean? It now means that Canadians have to pay back all that money with interest, and 43 cents of every dollar you earn now has to go to pay the tax burden. More money to bankers and bondholders. In fact, the government's now spending more on the interest on that debt than on health care. But the Prime Minister doesn't care. He doesn't worry about where the money comes from. He's never had to worry about that. So why not let Canadians decide their future by calling a carbon tax election?
Canadians expect their government to be focused on their economic concerns. They expect their government to be focused on the real threat that 25% tariffs across the board would mean to the Canadian economy. That's the work that our government's doing. I can report, Mr. Speaker, I had an encouraging preliminary conversation with the Foreign Affairs Minister yesterday, with the Border Czar, with Mr. Homan. We look forward to working with the incoming administration on border security, something that the fall economic statement generously supported yesterday. This is the work Canadians expect us to be focused on, and we're looking forward to doing that work.
They were so proud of that fall budget that they tabled it in the House and then ran and hid for the rest of the day. But let's recap. The Prime Minister announced $250 checks and then had to cancel them. He announced a 2-month GST tax trick that businesses say they won't implement, and the Prime Minister now says is optional. A broken immigration system, Parliament seized with a $400 million corruption scandal, all the while 2 million food bank visits, doubled housing costs, record high consumer debt, the dollar below 70 cents, and the Prime Minister raising prices by quadrupling the carbon tax. Yes. Again, why not let Canadians decide their future by calling a carbon tax election?
Mr. Speaker, as I said a moment ago, we're proud of the fiscal and economic record of this government. This is a record, Mr. Speaker, of supporting Canadians through the pandemic. This is a record of investing in entrepreneurship and innovation. This is a record in providing, for example, Canadians with $10 a day childcare, historic investments to speak to not only affordability issues, but growing the economy in a sustainable way. Mr. Speaker, this is work we're proud to continue to do for Canadians, and we find it unfortunate that it's the opposition that's trying to ground this House of Commons into chaos.
Mr. Speaker, I do congratulate the new Minister of Finance on his appointment. That said, there have been crises shaking this government for a long time, just crisis after crisis. Now there is a bad economic statement. We have a huge deficit. We also have money that the government should not have given out, that it cannot recoup. Now we need to be strong in negotiating with the United States in the context of a significant political and economic crisis. How can this government still think it has the authority and legitimacy to do so? Mr. Speaker, I thank the Bloc Quebecois leader for his congratulations. Our government is legitimate because our government has the confidence of the House of Commons. The House gave the government its confidence several times last week. As the Bloc Quebecois leader said, we are still prioritizing supporting Canadians through tough times. We are also focusing on working with the Trump administration, which will come into office in January. We will work with them to reduce or even eliminate the threat of tariffs. We will protect our borders, and we will ensure that our economy succeeds and thrives. The government does not have the confidence of this House. It does not enjoy the confidence of the House. It enjoys the NDP's weakness. That said, if the government feels legitimate in negotiating on Canada's behalf in a potentially very dire crisis for Canada, then why doesn't the government seek the support and confidence of Canadians with this leader or with another? In January. That can happen in January.
People are right to be angry. They've got a prime minister who's more interested in protecting his own job than defending Canadians against Trump. We've got a prime minister who's failed to defend workers from rich CEOs that the Conservatives love, who continue to rip off Canadians and drive up the cost of food and homes. The Prime Minister has failed. For New Democrats, it's always workers first and not CEOs. And not CEOs who the Conservatives want to defend. So will the Prime Minister acknowledge he has failed? He has to quit.
Order, please. The Honourable Minister, and Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this House voted in confidence of this government just last week on multiple occasions. Mr. Speaker, we have important work to do on behalf of Canadians. We have a very important relationship to manage with the United States at a pivotal time, Mr. Speaker, and that is exactly what this government is focused on doing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.